Welcome into Texans Today. No, you are not dreaming. 2 videos in one day here on the channel. We just have so much stuff as we get closer and closer to NFL free agency, the NFL new league year beginning. I thought, you know what? I got to make another video around all this wide receiver madness. Obviously, we all know the Texans need a wide receiver, and it's not just us Texans fans that know the Texans are looking at wide receiver options this offseason. Prime time, my man, Joe, main man Mixon, tweeted this out earlier today. OMG, imagine Nico and, you know what, never mind. Just wait on it. Well, you don't have to wait on it on this episode of Texans Today, because I'm going to be breaking down the top 10 options for right now that the Texans have once the new league year starts. But I want to hear from you folks at home first. What wide receiver do you think fits best with the Texans? What wide receiver do you want the Texans to add? And I'm going to leave this open for interpretation. Free agency, trade, maybe the draft. Let me know the number 1 wide receiver this offseason you think the Texans should add. Now, it is to be said, I'm not having any draft prospects in my ranking right now. This is just for the new league year, free agency, maybe some trade options as well. And the ranking is based on a couple things. One, the value of the contract. I'm going to be looking at Spotrac projections on what they might be making. I know it's not going to be exact, but just a ballpark of what they might be making. Also, the fit in the offense with Nick Caserio. Obviously, we know he comes from that West Coast system, the Kyle Shanahan tree. So what guys maybe have some experience in that tree, as we should say, and also projecting their progression. How old are they, and how good do you think they'll be in the next 2, maybe 3 years for the Houston Texans, depending on what contract that they doge out for them. Also, Davante Adams honestly should be in the top 10 list, but I actually made a video on him earlier today. This is it right here. It's actually, I give my reasons on why the Texans shouldn't sign Davante Adams. I do think he is in the discussion for the top 10 receiving options for the Texans this offseason, but since I already made a video on him earlier today, I decided not to add him in this video. If you want to check out this video, it's on the channel. This is what the thumbnail looks like. I'll also put that link in the comment section, description of today's video. So once you watch this entire video, if you want to keep on watching Jeremy Chuggs, well, you have the option right there to watch that video as well. Without further ado, let's get right into it. First option, Tyler Lockett, got released today by the Seattle Seahawks. And he spent his entire career there in Seattle. 32 years old, on the wrong side of 30. Spotrac projects him at about a $7.7 million a year in his next contract. And, you know, he's a good receiver. But the production has steadily declined year over year. In 2023, under 900 yards. This past year, he played 17 games, only 600 yards for the Seahawks. Is an okay option. I don't want him at that $7.7 million price tag, but if it's cheaper than that, if it's a cheap option, I don't know necessarily his fit in a Nick Caserio offense, but could be an option in free agency. Let's look at another option in Chris Godwin, one of the more high-profile guys in free agency at the wide receiver spot in this year's free agency cycle. He is 29 years old, but he is coming off an injury this past season that kept him out for better half of the year. 50 receptions, 576 yards, 5 touchdowns for the 29-year-old. His Spotrac projection, $22.5 million a year. That's why I have him actually at number 9 on my list, just because it's a little bit too rich for me. If the Texans are going to spend that type of money, I have better options coming up later on in the list, but obviously the talent's there. He only played 7 games this past year. Obviously, like I said, due to injury, he missed the rest of the season, but he is very consistent, and he's really good as a sure-handed option. You see the drops on the right. They're pretty low for the amount of targets and receptions that Godwin has over his career. Would be a decent option. I wouldn't hate it. Just the money is the thing that kind of hangs me up on the Texans going out with Chris Godwin. Now, next option, Amari Cooper. And it actually surprised me. I feel like he's been in the league for so long. He just turned 30 years old. Just this year. $14.2 million a year projected from Spotrac. 44 receptions, 547 yards, 4 touchdowns this past year, where he split time between the Cleveland Browns and the Buffalo Bills. And I don't know how I feel about Amari Cooper, to be honest. Like he gets it done. He's efficient. Has some drop problems though. And, not that it's a bad thing, but in a league where receivers are usually divas, they're usually out there more, vocal guys. Amari Cooper is very soft-spoken. Not really a leader, would be somebody who would come in and would, give you some production. But if you're looking for any type of veteran leadership, that's not Amari Cooper. He's not a leader. He's not a guy that's going to rally the troops in the locker room. Somebody who might fit that billing a little bit better than Amari Cooper is Keenan Allen. Played this past season with the Chicago Bears after he was traded from the Los Angeles Chargers. Caleb Williams had a lot of glowing remarks for Keenan Allen, even though he didn't have his best season. Got injured, had 70 receptions, 744 yards, 7 touchdowns this past year. He is 32, and the Spotrac projection is at around $11 million a year. And, injuries have been a problem with Allen. 15 games this last year, but you look at the 2 years prior, only 13 games and then 10 games. But he is very efficient, and he's able to kind of stretch the field as a very long option. Him on the opposite side of Nico Collins would be very intriguing. Just the age and his injury history has me a little bit worried to go out and sign Keenan Allen at that, $11 million a year price tag. Next up, Marquise Brown comes in at number 6 on my list. This is an intriguing option as well because I always love being able to take from the top teams in your conference, the Kansas City Chiefs, make them a little bit weaker, even though Marquise Brown didn't really play that much for the Chiefs this past year, was dealing with injury, so he didn't really play for the Chiefs this past season. But you look at, his stats the 4 years prior, not bad, right? Arizona in 2023 and 2022 was a good receiver for Kyler Murray, a decent option. 2021 and 2020 with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore was his, pseudo wide receiver 1. I would like this option as a field stretcher. I'm okay with it. And at 27 years old, the injury doesn't scare me because obviously he played the end of this past season, played in the playoffs, played in the Super Bowl. So he'd be good to go this next season. And if you're able to get a little bit cheaper than that $7.9 million price tag, I'd be interested in Marquise Brown. Now, these guys just missed the cut. DeAndre Hopkins, a little bit older, and I don't know. I wanted to put Hopkins on the list, but just a return to Houston just doesn't seem likely to me. It just doesn't seem likely that he comes back to Houston. I think a lot of Texans fans would love Hopkins, arguably the second best receiver in Texans history behind Andre Johnson. Nico Collins is making his own case for that as he continues his career. But he just missed the list. Dyami Brown for the Washington Commanders. A lot of smoke, a lot of rumors around the Texans being interested in him. He's a very low-profile guy that the Texans could sign at a very cheap price tag. Darius Slayton, he didn't make the list because his projection was a little bit too high for somebody who I don't think fits that billing. He's on the right side of 30. He's, the right age. But, getting around $18, $19, $20 million a year, I'm out on that. TuTu Atwell, obviously, he has the connection with Nick Caserio playing with the Los Angeles Rams. So I like that connection there. Just didn't make the list just because I think there's some better options out there. Would be a good, roster filler as somebody who you sign on a cheap contract. Same could be said about Elijah Moore, who is also very young and I don't think has gotten a good shake in the NFL. He's played with the Jets and the Browns, two of the worst organizations in the entire NFL. I think he just deserves a shot. Another guy who just missed the list. Coming up, top 5 options in free agency at the wide receiver spot. And I maybe cheat a little bit on that free agency part. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. But if you're trying to get a good deal this off season, our friends over at Fanatics have a ton of sale options for you. All you got to do, go to chatsports.com/Texans sale. A ton of sale options. I know this economy. I get it. I get it. Not everybody can spend the big bucks. Not everybody has a lot of money to spend on Texans gear. So if you want to see some cheap options, check out what's on sale. Check out what's on clearance. Hey, I do that all the time. If I'm going into a department store, I'm definitely looking on that sale rack to say, hey, can I get a good deal? All this stuff is on sale on Fanatics. All you got to do, go to chatsports.com/Texans sale. Check it all out today. That link's going to be in the comment section description of today's show. Now, let's get into the top 5. Number 5, Josh, or a lot of people call him Joshua Palmer from the LA Chargers. And at this price tag, I don't know if he gets this low, $4.2 million a year. If that's the case, I am signing Joshua Palmer. He has some injury history, but at 25 years old, he is a really good receiving threat and a good weapon, a good field stretcher as well. I love the idea of going out and getting a Joshua Palmer in free agency. I think this would be a really sneaky good move for the Houston Texans. I made a video right before the Texans played the Chargers in the playoffs saying the Chargers were going to miss Palmer dearly in that matchup, and it showed. That Chargers offense did not look good, and I think a big reason for that is because Palmer was out during the playoffs. Next option, Christian Kirk. I think this would be a decent option as well. You always love to take one against the top people in your conference, but also division rivals. Now, for Kirk, he was just released today by Jacksonville. So actually, Spotrac did not have an evaluation for him. So it was kind of hard to put where he's at on my list, to be honest. He can definitely fluctuate up and down depending on what that price tag is. He's 28 years old. This past season was injured for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Depending on the price, really depends on where I would put Christian Kirk in my evaluation. If it's, around that $6, $7, $8, $9 million price tag, yeah, I'm in on Christian Kirk. But if it's creeping up to that higher amount, like remember whenever the Jags signed him to that crazy contract and everybody was like, really, Christian Kirk, that much? Yeah, I don't think Christian Kirk gets that much in this cycle. And if it's on the cheaper side, yeah, I'd be down for the Texans to sign him as a pretty good slot option for this offense with Nick Caserio. Now, let's get into the top 3 options. Number 3, a familiar name, Stefon Diggs. I might be a bigger Diggs fan than a lot of other Texans fans out there, but I just love his fit with this offense. Really, before the injury, I thought he was kind of cooking with CJ Stroud. They have a really good chemistry. It fluctuates, though, with the value of the evaluation, right? 31, coming off an ACL injury. Is he really going to get $13.4 million a year in a new contract? He was on pace to get around 100 catches, around 1,000 yards for the Houston Texans. And once again, everybody talks about how Diggs is, bad for the locker room, bad as a teammate. I don't see that at all. He was injured. He was out for the rest of the year, and he was still on the sidelines cheering his guys on right there for his teammates when he didn't have to be. He was there. He was right alongside Tank Dell, and I really do like Stefon Diggs as a receiving option. Even though he's on the wrong side of 30, I still think he has some juice left in the tank, and I would love for the Texans to go out and re-sign Stefon Diggs. If they can find a happy medium on a contract evaluation, I would love the idea of him returning to Houston. Now, I mentioned a little cheating with the free agency because DK Metcalf is not a free agent, but he has officially requested a trade from the Seattle Seahawks. And Spotrac did, funny enough, have an evaluation for him on a new contract if he was to get an extension from another team. They put it at $26.1 million a year for the 27-year-old. And I would love the idea. DK Metcalf on one side, Nico Collins on the other. I know Nico Collins is a true X, but he does some of his best work out of the slot. So you're telling me you can have DK Metcalf out there, either Nico Collins on the other side, or that allows the positional flexibility to play Nico Collins more in the slot. This is my trade idea for DK Metcalf if the Texans were to acquire him. Straight up. DK Metcalf for your second-round pick, number 57. Let me know in the comment section, would you make this trade? Give me a yes. Give me a no. What do you think about my DK Metcalf trade idea? If you're able to trade for him and sign him to that, $26 million a year range, then yeah, I'm in. The, trajectory of this league, the trajectory of wide receivers is getting $30 million plus. You look at guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, the top options there, they're getting more than $30 million a year. You're telling me I can get a 27-year-old, and maybe he's not a top 5 receiver, but he is still an excellent threat at the receiver spot. I think that would be awesome for this offense. We look at the last 4 seasons for DK Metcalf, 2 years where he just got right under that 1,000 yard mark. But I mean, overall, he's been pretty efficient and pretty consistent, right? That 2021 year, 12 touchdowns, and the drop numbers are really good for him as well. I think he would fit really good in this offense. DK Metcalf, the only problem is he's going to have a lot of suitors. So I don't know if a second-round pick is enough, or I don't know what the Seahawks' other offers are going to be on the table, or if other teams are willing to, trade for DK Metcalf and give him even a larger contract than the Texans would be able to do. But I love the idea of bringing DK Metcalf to Houston. But my number one option for the Texans, and it's been this way for a little bit, it's Cooper Kupp. There's so many obvious reasons why this makes sense. It's almost like you're going to try to find reasons why it doesn't make sense. But I believe Kupp is going to be released by the Rams. There is reports that more than likely Cooper Kupp will, in fact, be released by the LA Rams. He's 31 years old, but I still think he's got, like I said with Stefon Diggs, he's got some juice left in the tank, and he knows this offense already. He's worked with Nick Caserio for the past 2 years. And if he can come in and kind of be a player coach, maybe get some of these other guys, ingratiated with the system that they're going to run. I know it's pretty similar to the offense they already ran with Bobby Slowick. The injury concerns are there. I get that. But if you're able to get him at less than that evaluation I just showed you, what was it, $10.9 million a year? If you can get in the single digits for Cooper Kupp, I am down for that move. I think the fit is there. I think it makes sense. Cooper Kupp has something to prove, and him coming down to Houston to pair with CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, he doesn't have to be the wide receiver one option. He can, be in a supporting role next to Nico Collins. I love the idea of going out and getting Cooper Kupp. That's all I have for you on today's show, folks. Where did I mess up? Let me know on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs. Let me know. I probably missed somebody. Maybe my rankings aren't to your liking. Let me know down in the comments section, or hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are always open. And make sure you hit that subscribe button, because free agency week is upon us, and it is about to get nuts. Turn on your notifications. Subscribe so you don't miss a thing around your Houston Texans.